Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Can everybody hear me? Good? All right, perfect. I want to welcome everybody here to the Vauxhall branch of the Union Public Library. My name is Gabriel Ramos, and I'm the branch manager. And Paul Rates, our moderator for today's panel, has a lifelong history in popular music. His beginnings started out in Union High, where he wrote about rock and roll for the school newspaper, The Cannon. Paul was also a DJ for 4 years, which led to being offered a position with Sony Music Independent Division Red, where he was awarded 14 platinum records for his works with such bands as the Baha Men, Slipknot, The Offspring, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and Los Lonely Boys. He has also been featured in Billboard magazine and the College Media Journal for his work developing electronic dance music artists. He has appeared on Access TV's Rock My Collection with Ahmed Zappa and guested on various episodes on Drum Talk TV. Paul can also be found in the pages of the following books: Bruce Springsteen, I Was There, North Jersey Post-Punk 1977 to 1983, and You Are One of Us, The Ballad of Mott the Hoople. He is using his retirement years to continue documenting and filming musicians and historic music sites. And before we begin, I want to recognize some people in the crowd today. We have our mayor, Patricia Guerra Frazier. We also have our library director, Cassandra Miller. And also our state senator, Joe Crine. Okay. And now for the man of the hour, Mr. Paul Rates.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to personally thank you for coming, and I'd also like to thank these group of distinguished musicians for attending this afternoon's panel. Without them, we wouldn't be here. Remember those days when you went out for a walk? You were sitting in your yard, and you heard the sounds of a guitar, the pounding of drums, the sound of songs coming from your neighbor's garage or basement. Well, today you are going to meet some of those musicians who were in those basements and garages and find out where their musical journey took them. Today's presentation is not a complete history of all the musicians who came from Union and made a mark with their music. It would take more than one afternoon to tell that story. The story of Union musicians has to be told, and I couldn't think of a better time than today to start telling that story than with this group of incredibly talented musicians. So please join me and give a very warm welcome to Danny Salazzi, Dave Ross, Don Erdman, Gene O'Brien, Ian Smith, Ira Spin, Mike Andriola, and Rich Kubitz. Now we're going to set the stage on how this sort of developed. Where did they find the music? Anybody recognize some of these radio stations? Some of these television shows? When talking about this, NEW seemed to be the big one. 77 ABC was a big one for some of my generation. A few of us, Ed Sullivan, when the Beatles appeared, that was a life-changing moment. I know I sat there and with my parents in their living room like everybody else did, and I saw them, I said, I got to do that. Uncle Floyd, a local station, was a big, I think many of the bands here appeared on Uncle Floyd. Even the Glenn Campbell Hour, Midnight Special, Don Kirshner's In Concert, all big influences on where they got their music. Now we're going to bring back a few more memories from that time. Where did they purchase their music? Well, as rich as Union's history is with musicians, Union and the surrounding areas were very rich with areas to buy music. Melody Records, of course, in Union Center. Yeah. Crazy Eddie's on 22. Compact Disc World. Great Eastern. Valley Fair, remember that one? Harmony House on Route 22, Alwook and Vogel's in Elizabeth. And I don't know about these guys, but I remember going to Alwook, seeing what the prices were, then going across the street to Vogel's and see if they were 10 cents cheaper. Hey, I had to allow my allowance money somewhere to go a little further. Vintage Vinyl in Irvington, which will play a part later on. And for some of these guys, I'm not sure if they're still getting chased by Columbia House. I'm not sure if they really came through with their subscription or not. And for the more adventurous, Ira just paid his. And for the more adventurous, they went off to New York City, to Greenwich Village, and the many record stores that were there. Back on influences, I did a lovely conversation with Ed Prisby, who we'll get to a little later on, but he had some very interesting remarks about early influences.
Sound?
Tommy?
We need more vocal, Tom.
that really helped.
You want to start it again, Paul?
Yeah.
Multitask over here.
Two big influences that really helped the union musicians, and one was the WNEW-FM. I discovered that in 6th grade, and I just I had been listening to Dan Ingram, WABC, and wasn't particularly inspired by that, but once I found WNEW, WPLJ, it was like a light, like a type of thing. It was really amazing. The other thing is I did want to give a shout out to a bunch of music teachers, because in hindsight I look at it and I say, I didn't really show them the appreciation that I now in hindsight have. A few of them come to mind, but definitely, I think his name was Robert Cohen, the vocal music teacher who got a hold of a bunch of cheap acoustic guitars. For lack of that, I wouldn't be playing. Seymour Simon was a very accomplished player. He would play out weekends as well. He hooked us up with, I went to school with one of our horn players, Stuart Abramson, but also with a guy from Maplewood, the next town over. To this day, I'm still in touch with them a little bit, but that's what led to the three-piece horn section, my original band, or our original band. Shouldn't take credit for it. But those guys, Mortimer Geist, Central Sixth guy. In hindsight, I realized that all those folks had a big influence on me and on others, and probably, what I wish is that they could know that now, because I don't know if they knew that then. I think as a teacher, you throw some suggestions, you do a little guidance, and some of it, the seeds never germinate, and some of it, the seeds germinate, and off you go.
No, I agree with you. I think I'd like to add one more name to that mix. Is Jack Traeger.
Jack, yeah, I agree, but I was not in the band, in the school music thing at that point, so I didn't actually study under Jack Traeger. But for lots of other people, yes, yeah, for sure.
All right. Back in this time period, and I'd like some recollections from our distinguished musicians, we had a rec center. We had dances at the junior highs and the high school with live bands. We had Battle of the Bands at Beer Temple Park. We had dances at Holy Spirit. Great times, gentlemen. I know most of you played at those dances.
I used to go see the Battle of the Bands
at Holy Spirit. That's the one across from the diner, right?
Yep.
Okay. And there was bands like Tacundra and Satellite and Spectrum, and the thing is, Battle of the Bands is not really a good thing for bands because it's not. Every band has their own thing, and they just do what they do. So when people are trying to vote for this or vote for that, and I remember there was always people upset at the end of the night. So some band would win, and I remember the guys going, "The weak band."
Well, I don't think music should be a competition.
Exactly.
So.
Exactly. Right. And so that's what. So it would have been better if they just had it as a band night. You know what I mean? But it was good. It was good though. You got to see a lot of. I was younger than everybody else, so I would see these guys, and I'd be like, I'll never be able to do that. And then And I used to see actually Mike. Mike played at Burnett Junior High School when I was in Burnett Junior High School, and I'd be like, how did he do that?
No.
I was in Sunrise here at this point, and this was one of my first appearances with the band at this battle. And what was interesting was, if I remember the setup correctly, Sacrifice, Billy Sylvain, Bruce Tobia, Ron Garcia was here, and they played. I could be off. Stuff like Kansas, things like that. Then there was us doing Doobie Brothers, things like that. Mylon Novak's band to our left doing things like Bowie and Matt the Hoople, and then Tacundra on the end doing Black Sabbath. So how do you choose? All these 4 different bands doing 4 different types of music, which I think speaks to the diversity of music that we had, at least as far as rock and roll goes, in Union. So how we pulled it off, I don't know. So too bad.
And you'll see the diversity come up later on in the presentation, how many different genres came from the musicians in Union. Second one had 400 people attending it at Beer Temple, and a band called Toe Jam won that show. That would be 76. Now we get to Sunrise, which one of the bands from Union from that period of time. And we're going to change it around a little. As the Grateful Dead would say, I need a miracle every day. So the miracle's in the back. All the way from Connecticut, I'd like to bring up the guitar player from Sunrise, Ed Prisby. We had recorded a Zoom recording for this presentation, but since Ed made it down here, I'd like to hear it in his own words in person. Thank you, Ed, for letting me put you on the spot.
What of my own words did you actually...
Well, back to when we started with how you got to Sunrise, how that kind of started. And also, if I remember right, you had the grading system on one of the Battle of the Bands. So if you want to tell us how did you start, and how did that Sunrise, I know it started off, I think, as an area code something.
Yeah, there was an area code 201. And I think, if I had to summarize it, a lot of it was that there were a lot of musicians around. There was a lot of motivation. There was a lot of competition. And I have mixed feelings about the competition because, on one hand, I wish we were a little more, I wish all the people had been a little more collaborative than we were. But that was because, as in my recollection anyway, what I recall is there were a lot of musicians, a lot of good musicians, and only a few places to play. And so any gig that they got was a gig that I didn't get. but the positive thing about that is it really raised the bar. Everybody was striving to do bigger and better things. That's my take on it.
Now, how did Sunrise develop? Because there are a lot. That was a prime Union band during that middle 70s period, 74, 75 period.
Well, it was one band called this Area Code 201, and over time people came in, people left for various reasons, and we started out. Paul made some reference to it earlier. My very first gig, we had 3 horns in an 8th grade, maybe 9th grade band. And the thing is, I didn't really have much of a clue about playing at that point. I was very dependent on the keyboard player. And as we're setting up, we find out that the keyboard player, or the keyboard is dead. And I was shaking. Because this, I'm going to be playing in my junior high school in Kiwami in front of all my friends. And as long as somebody else was holding down the fort, I felt comfortable with it. But without that, they were able to find a replacement organ, which came in 5 minutes before we were supposed to start. One of the scariest events. Well, over time, different people came and went. In my case, once we went to college, the band sort of disbanded because everybody was off to different corners. But then I picked it up again in my late 40s. And I have a gig this afternoon. So I got to get out of here right after this. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Appreciate that. And Gino, who's sitting 2 people from him for most of the time, was the bass player in Sunrise.
Not right away. When I sort of joined, quote unquote, Sunrise, I was the sound man, such as how far thinking Ed is that instead of just setting up a band and letting them play, let's have 1 or 2 people go out and listen to us. And if somebody's too loud, you have freedom to go up and turn the amp down so that the sound was balanced. Who's thinking about this but Ed, which is a compliment. So the original bass player was Paul Lampert. I don't know where Paul Lampert went or what, but he left, and I'll tell you, everybody right now, the best advice I ever got, sort of a backwards way of doing it, was from this man, from Ed. I had just seen John Lennon at the One-to-One show in New York, and we were sitting, I remember this like it was yesterday, in Mrs. Bush's English class, and I said to Ed, I think I want to learn how to play guitar. And he looked at me and gave me the best piece of advice I'd ever said. He said, look, learn how to play the bass because you'll find yourself in a lot more bands a lot quicker. He says, everybody wants to be Jimmy Page and nobody wants to, sit in the back and play the bass. And I'll be damned if that wasn't true. I mean, I found myself in more bands. Hey, you play bass? Because everybody wanted to be up front playing the guitar. Nobody wanted to be in the back playing the bass. It's a backwards way of doing it because normally you play guitar, and if you can play guitar, you can play the bass. I'm thinking, this is great. There's 2 less strings I have to worry about. This is wonderful. And I was, I think, passable at best, if I'm honest, but it was a trip and a half because we played a lot of cool, like that infamous concert at the at the high school, which is another story. And Ed was right about the competition end of it. We would play a dance, and sometimes somebody's little girlfriend would come up and they'd go, my boyfriend's band is here. You should let them play a song. And we're like, well, no, we're playing. Are you afraid that they're going to be better than you? And Ed, in his wisdom, said, well, if they were any better, they'd have the job. Which is true. That and we'd get a lot of, could you play Stairway to Heaven? And we did. And in Kiwami, they had these, I don't know what it's like now, they had wooden bleachers that they would pull out. And as soon as we would start Stairway, you'd hear, ah! And all these little girls would come running down, and it sounded like rats in the walls coming down the bleachers, and they'd sit in front, and they'd be like this. Okay.
That was a pretty nice perk, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was kind of cool for you guys.
You guys were playing it with a flutophone, I remember.
Yes.
What I wanted to bring up. How many people in the school system, growing up in Union, in grammar school, had that little plastic flutophone?
They played it in Stairway.
Yeah, Ed played the flutophone and Stu had the flute. So we were able to do the double flute.
I had one of those.
The Temple City Kazoo Orchestra. But that's honestly the best piece of advice I ever got. And that's how I met a lot of these guys. I mean, I knew from high school, obviously Don, but that's how I met Ira. Ira said, I'm going to do a single. I need a bass player. Okay. Boom. And it was from that day to this, the best piece of musical advice I ever had. Oh, excuse me, I ever had.
By the way, I'm a bass player
I know, I saw. Way better than me, too.
Thanks, Gino. How many people remember the Evergreen Lodge across the border in Springfield? There's a couple union bands right there, Tacundra and Timber. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a member of Timber, Don Erdman. And you thought he was just a teacher at the high school. There's an early picture.
Oh, there you go. Look at that. What happened?
We're going to get to the mandolin player later, but there's a gentleman behind the drums, Milt Janus. And
Welcome, Milt Janus.
How are you, Paul?
Good. Good afternoon, Milk, and thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
Obviously on the panel, we're talking about a band called Timber. But I want to know, how did you work your way into that band, if you will?
The band Timber, I came together probably 1975, and it kind of just germinated out of friendship that started between Don Erdman and myself. Bill Cosmano and I were in the orchestra together, and kind of started in the back of a Union High school bus. I met Don out of cross-country collaboration between Kwame High and Burnett. They would combine the teams. And then we got to talking and gradually started the band, the three of us, and put an ad in where we got Mark Muller and his brother Steven. And it all fermented in my mother's basement for a while.
Now, leading into drums, did you, as a drummer, leading up into Timber, were you self-taught or did you study?
Oh, I had lessons. I had moved here to Union in 8th grade, so I was a new kid. And got introduced to the orchestra, Seymour Simon. And that's where kind of the tentacles went out and I met everybody, you know, and that's where it came through.
Now with Timber, we played at a couple local places. You did Charlie Kelly's, you were the house band, or at least one of them. You played places like Evergreen Lodge next door in Springfield, New Jersey. You want to talk about some of the types of music? Because you were, like we were talking about at the Battle of the Bands, etc., you were playing a different genre of music than most of the other bands in Union at that time.
Yes, we were. We were different. I mean, the older kids, you know, older than us, they would go see Kinderhook, and Kinderhook was like the sweet polka sounding band. We had a little rougher edge to us, you know. We had the X Factor. We had Don up front, was sort of our Peter Wolf, if you want to say, you know. The bands didn't have that. And Don was always talking, so it was a very interactive band. We had we used acoustic instruments on the stage, mic'd them up. You know, everybody was playing their SGs and Les Pauls back then. We used a little jazz drum set. I didn't have a big kit back then. And Mark Muller introduced pedal steel and that stuff to the audience that really didn't see it, you know. So we were different. Adults liked us. You know, we played Charlie Kelly's. We would have some of the faculty at Union High School coming out to see us.
And you were
a fun band.
You were still on the borderline of senior, getting out of high school, in high school, kind of at that time frame.
The Battle of Bands, I was in, I want to say, 9th grade. And Dom had just started high school. And then when I was a sophomore, I keep forgetting it was a 3-year high school back then. I was a sophomore, Dom was a junior. The bars caught wind of us and we started playing them. And we worked. I mean, we'd go up to Lake Apacon and play and the Ramble Inn. we traveled, and members came and went after a while, but the band lasted up till I want to say 1990 in some shape or form, off and on.
That's a good run. Was there any particular union musician who had some type of influence on you, Milt, in some way or form?
To start off, I would say Eddie Prisby, because Eddie Prisby arranged the piece in junior high. I was a new kid, like I said, and we blew the place away, that assembly, and all of a sudden I got accepted. I could play drums there, and a lot of that's because of that piece Eddie came up with, the old Blood, Sweat, and Tear number.
Help you on your journey as a starting.
Yeah, definitely helped me. Yeah, definitely helped me.
Now, as a playing musician, Milt, what have you been up to after Timber?
I did a lot of freelance work. I mean, a lot in New York City. I did a little stint with Leon Redbone, Suzanne Vega. I did some hand percussion work with Dr. John. So I've always been working. I've slowed down recently and, never without a gig, which I work when I want to work now.
And Timber was one of those areas that helped you move on with your career. A lot of this.
Yeah, I mean, back then, like I said, the bigger bands, like we used to call them the mafia bands that were managed by the mob. Yeah. They had their thing, but we were self-supportive. We managed ourselves. And it's kind of funny with Timber. A lot of those guys, members of those bands, wound up coming in Timber one time or another through the career of it. Guys from Fog on the Oregon Coast, Cowtown. We've had quite a few guys come through. But, it's finally put the dirt on it after all these years. It would be fun. I mean, Don and I, like you saw, have recently started playing together. And we still, there's still a connection there. I've seen some video and definitely there's a connection from the past.
Well, I appreciate you sharing some insights, Milt, and hopefully we can see you in the future where we can talk to you and learn more about your story.
Okay, thank you, Paul.
Milt Janus. Now I'd like to ask the X factor of Timber. Don, how did your side of Timber develop?
I think we were on the track team. I was on the track team with Milton. We used to sing in the shower and stuff. Not together. But, we realized we could harmonize. And when we got down in his mother's basement, when you locked in on 3-part harmony, it was like magic to me. I was like, holy mackerel. And you felt that energy just like in the room playing with one another. Now let's take that out to your peers at Holy Spirit. And it's like, oh my God, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. This is just wonderful. And it became like the most important thing in the world. Like school, what's that? And I can't believe what I thought was the product of a misspent youth I'm up here talking about, now. But like, I remember we needed lights or something for our big light show. And it was Christmas time. And on the way driving here down Vauxhall Road, this house right on the corner of Jeanette and Vauxhall had this vast display of floodlights. And jump out of the car, grab them, we got all the lights. Because the band, that's all that mattered. That was number one. And I mean, you guys are talking about the battles of the bands. Prior to that, I remember jamming at people's house. Like if somebody wasn't home, they'd drag the drum set over, the parents weren't home. And we'd be playing all night, and that's how a lot of these bands evolved. I recall that. And, your little band was like our gang. That's how I remember it. But you talked about Charlie Kelly's. They called it Father Kelly's because it was open Sunday mornings. Like fathers would drop their wives and children off at church and then go to Father Kelly's where they had go-go dancing on Sunday morning. Lord, it's not there anymore in Clark. But yeah, this is how I grew up, you know. So I was glad I was able to mold many young minds here in Union after that. That's all I got.
Thank you, Don. Now, this young face in timber, Mark Muller, he played guitar, he played mandolin, among several other instruments. That's his brother. And ladies and gentlemen, Mark Muller.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome Mark Muller, multi-instrumentalist and an honorary member of the Union community. Mark, welcome.
Hi, how are you, Paul? Thanks for calling.
Would you tell me, how did you end up in Union, Mark? Where's the beginnings on this?
I believe when freshman year of high school ended, 74, I was playing around in my basement with my brother and other local bands down there, but I saw an ad, and I'm trying to remember where the ad was, either in the Bergen Record or the One Ad Press, or it could have been in the old Aquarian. But either way, I saw a band in Union. I didn't even know where Union was. When you're 14 years old, in Hackensack, New Jersey, Union is a world away, right? But anyway, I called and I went down there, and it was a bunch of nice guys in another basement, some 25 minutes away. And so I ended up joining their band right out of freshman year. And we played, rehearsed. That's why I think I can be an honorary Union resident, because I spent that summer living at either the Janusis house or at Billy Cosmano's house. My family would drop me off down there, and I'd spend the weekend and we'd rehearse.
And I think that definitely qualifies you as an honorary Unionite. Was that Timber at that point, or Timber was?
It was Timber, yeah. It was the beginning of Timber. I think we all came up with the name together when we were trying to find names. And then we did score our first actual gig at the Holy Something or Other Battle of the Bands, September of '75.
That would be Holy Spirit, I believe, would be the first.
Yes, and I think you said that you're there, like in this picture somewhere.
I am, I believe, possibly over the left shoulder.
Yeah, and it was my brother and I. That's Billy Cosmano's family's mandolin that I borrowed. But my brother would drive me down so many times in his '68 Volkswagen, and we needed a bass player, so he unofficially joined the band, and he was part of that first gig at the Battle of the Bands.
Now, in one of the photos, I believe you're holding a guitar. Would you, by any chance, happen to have that guitar, Mark?
Funny you should ask. So, you mean there's one?
Right.
Right here, 51 years later. And it's holding up better than I am. but yeah, it's still a part of the daily chores.
Now, during Timber, your first gig was at Holy Spirit, and then I guess it moved on to the Evergreen Lodge, and then possibly
that was great.
Charlie Kelly's in Clark.
And DeStefano's was our first big place. I don't even know if it's still there, or it was like an old biker bar or something.
Right, that was on the border, I think, of Kenilworth and Roselle Park. Right on.
Yes, I remember, having to run out the back door because ABC. I mean, I was only 15 at the time, and ABC raids and having to set up my amp, next to the exit door. So if any problems, I could just get out the back door.
I think the name Dave DeFazio's come up a couple times, making sure that you got out of the club in time.
He was the man. Nobody argued with Dave DeFazio, right? Or DeFonso.
Now, did you start originally on guitar and then moved on because you played mandolin, you played pedal steel? How did that? work its
do
way.
you remember what was the Freddie the German Cowboy, right? What was that?
Right, that was in Hillside at
The Blue Ribbon Inn.
correct.
Blue Ribbon Inn. Yeah, yeah. It was so exciting as a young band to get all these like new clubs, one from another, and people come to see us and start getting a buzz and stuff. Yeah. I was at that point that I went to the Capitol Theater in Passaic and saw the New Riders. So I had to get me a steel guitar. I came home, Mom, Dad, I need to. So I found one. And then I saw Jackson Browne and David Lindley blew me away. And Mom, Dad, we have to find a fiddle somewhere. So, I just, whatever I saw at that period of my life, 14, 15, I just wanted to get one and play it. And, so yeah, at that point I started playing pedal steel and the other instruments.
Mostly self-taught, or did you have some?
I had a very good guitar teacher from New Milford, Van Moretti, that I started when I was 68, that I took with him classical lessons. So I had a good foundation in music. And from there on in, it was all hippie music and the Grateful Dead and the New Riders bluegrass. What I was going to mention is that my generation, born around 1960, were like the second wave of baby boomers, right? The next wave. But we had the music from the first wave of baby boomers to learn from, 15 years after all that rock and roll and everything in the 60s, Dylan. So by the time I was holding an instrument, that was what we were learning. It was an amazing time to be a young musician, Well,
I absolutely agree. I think that 69 to early 80s was really a prime area for music. And I think it was it's hard to repeat that period of time any other time over the last 50 or 60 years. I think that was just... It was perfect. It was a perfect storm.
Yeah, all the things that led to 1955, the birth of rock and roll, Rock Around the Clock, it all exploded in 55 and just spread out to every direction. And like I said, me being born in 60, by the time I had a guitar in my hand, in 68, 70, had all that great new music to just be a sponge and try and learn whatever you could.
Now, after Timber, where did you go on to, Mark?
I would say 3 years with Timbers, from 75 to when I graduated high school. I found a band just up the Parkway, closer to Hackensack in Carlstadt, Wallington, actually, Molly Cribb.
Yep.
So after 3 years with Timber, we moved on, and I found Molly Cribb, and I spent 3 years, 78 until 81, with Timber, and it was along the same lines of Southern rock and all that music, and playing all the, well, what a scene that was. When you play the final exam on a Tuesday, and there's 500 people there, it was just, amazing. I did that with Molly Cribb. We did well until I went to Berkeley. I saw little hippie bluegrass kid I was. I saw Jeff Beck. Someone said, go see Jeff Beck in 1980. And Jeff Beck melted my tie-dye. So within a few months, I was at Berkeley. So that's where the real journey started. Yep.
Okay, and I know you. Some of the projects you're working on now, you have some solo material that you put out, and I think you're also involved in a Grateful Dead. I don't want to say tribute band, but I believe you're out there with doing some Dead stuff.
It is a tribute band, but a little different than other tribute bands. And it's funny, as I was playing all this stuff back in the 70s. I was saying to myself, what happens when I get older, when I can be a real professional musician and no one's listening to the kind of music that I play, like at that time, country rock and Grateful Dead. And how funny is it? 50 years later, I'm playing the same stuff. Yeah, it's a wonderful scene, and it's like I opened up my closet, and I see these old pair of sneakers that I had in high school, and I take them out. They still look good, and I put them on, and they still feel really good. That's what playing this music all these years later is like. I'm 15 again, And
it's a tribute to the quality of those songs. It's like a Bach or Beethoven. It holds up over such a long period of time.
That first wave of baby boomers was a doozy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, I want to thank you. I guess folks can see you on Mark Muller at Bandcamp.
I'm just about to put out how do we put out anything? Nowadays, we put it on CD Baby for a minimal cost, and then we throw it up on Bandcamp because that's all that's left from our industry post-internet, isn't it? Really, the internet killed the music business industry, but it also started a whole other business or industry, just without the money part. But yeah, this will be my third. It's in 2 weeks coming out. Mark Muller Bandcamp. The first one I did in the 90s. The next one I did in 2010 with Victor Wooten on the bass and Rod Morgenstein from the Dregs. And this next one is really cool, I think. Music Soup.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Muller. Just an aside on Mark, he's very modest, but it would remiss me if I didn't tell you he's an adjunct professor of music at Monmouth University. If you open up a couple of different albums by Bruce Springsteen, you will see his name on it. And for many years, he played in Shania Twain's touring band. All right, we're going to go back to the X Factor, as apparently he makes his way down south a little. Don Erdman, you started going down south after Timber, right? Not quite over the bridge, I don't think, but a little down south, right?
Yeah, over the bridge.
You were in the Skin Davis band first, right?
That's right. Yeah, we used to play Mrs. J's down in Asbury Park. And it was like a precursor to getting into the Pony. So then kind of got tired of the country rock. At the end of the 70s, the music was changing. There was all this kind of new wave and stuff going on. And some other guys that were playing in a horn band, you see Whistler and the Wheels up there? They were getting tired of doing all that horn stuff, and we thought we'd do something smaller. So I hooked up with the Wheels rhythm section, and we became Hot Romance. And we got a steady Tuesday night at the Pony, sharing with Lord Gunner. 1 week we would do the first and third set, they would do the second and fourth, and we'd swap the next week. And that was a real education too, as well. A lot of fun. And a lot of late nights, because Asbury went to 3 o'clock in the morning.
Now, with Hot Romance, looking over the material, you played up and down the state of New Jersey, colleges from north down to the south. I mean,
We went up to Maine. We went down to Delaware. We were all over. Yeah.
Now, from Hot Romance, here's an ad from Fast Lane, with Junior Smoots and the Disturbers.
Glory days.
And then on the right-hand side, I think a little band called J.P. Gotrock. How did you get from Hot Romance to J.P. Gotrock?
J.P. Gotrock was kind of a combination of Asbury and New Brunswick scene. Al Schnitzer all the way on the right there, who just passed away last year. Now he's in the middle. He was in New Brunswick, and they were looking for a singer. They were kind of reforming. And my friend Vinny Lopez on the right wanted to do something. And I said, Vinny, this guy's looking for something. Why don't we all hook up? So Vinny says, I know a bass player. And all the way on the left there is Vinny Roslin. So Vinny Roslin and Vinny Lopez were the rhythm section for Child and Steel Mill, which was Bruce Springsteen's bands. Prior to that, I thought I was Ishin and High Cotton. You know what I mean? Thought I was all that with these guys being my rhythm section, the rhythm section. So yeah, that was a lot of fun. So JP got here. This is our claim to fame. They just had that Bruce movie that came out. What was it called? Road to Nowhere, Delivering Me from Nowhere. So they recreated 1980s Pony. Our name's up on the marquee. I'm in the theater trying to take a picture of it, but it didn't really come out, you know. So everybody that's sitting down on the lower part of that picture now has passed on. Just me and Vinny on the right, alive now. So you got to pursue clean living. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Paul.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate it. Now, Union musicians weren't just about rock and roll. We explored different genres. They explored different genres. And I'd like to introduce Ian Smith.
Hello, Paul.
Ian, you started a little later.
Yes, I did.
And I think you took a little different direction musically.
Totally.
You want to just start with your very beginning, which you were a little older, and then we'll get to a little sample of your music, we will.
Oh, that'll clear the joint.
Yeah, we...
Well, first of all, thanks for having us. And as all things seem to have, common denominator, Ed Prisby over here, taught me my first pentatonic scale. And it's been downhill since then. Anyway, well, I play a lot of more instrumental, avant-garde stuff. I started really late. Just that was a familial thing, reasoning. And but I'm still one of the people that played with Ed in Sunrise is Hal Hirsch, and Hal is a good buddy, and we talk all the time. And in fact, I talked to him the other day because I needed some chord voicing, spelling of some chords that I couldn't name because it was kind of a weirdo thing. And so he helped me, and we jammed a bunch of times. Still do. In fact, when I was living in Maplewood, I played with a lot of local bands there, just cover stuff. And I got tired of doing that. There's one band called Felt, another band called The Baby Please, and I was like, I'm playing the same music that you guys played when you were kids for the same money and probably less. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore, so I get Hal to do it. And so Hal is now a big part of that whole scene. But I do a lot of like instrumental things. I have a band called Monkey Works, and I just did a recording with one of my heroes. I've known him for 40 years, David Torn, who's an avant-garde guitar player, and with Tom Rainey as a drummer. In fact, it was Tom that I needed to get on board to do that recording because of the way he plays is so free and so expressive. And then this guy, Scott Petito, was the bass player, and it was his studio, and I had met Scott with David 40 years ago, and a buddy of mine just did a recording that I played on, and he said, "Oh, I'm going to get Scott Petito to mix it," and I'm like, "Really?" So I ventured on up to upstate New York, Catskill, New York, and I walk into the studio, and I'm going, "Oh man, this place is awesome! This is where I'm going to do this record." And I got David and Tom and Scott. In fact, I'm going to be doing another recording over there in 2 weeks with some of my friends, some people from my band Monkey Works. And just I'm really lucky that I'm surrounded by some really great players and some really good people, lifelong pals. And that camaraderie is really important, and for some reason they put up with my guitar playing. So, but I also did this recording that one of my buddies wanted me to enter it for a Grammy, and I'm like, "Are you insane? I I have no idea why anyone wanted. There's no chance, but I entered it and didn't get nominated. But through that, I met some really nice people, and hopefully that's going to lead to some recordings down the road. Yeah, and then this thing that you have there, that Jangla, in fact, the drummer that plays on that is going to be the drummer on this new project I'm doing, and he it starts with drummers. I don't know, you guys are drummers here, but it's really about the feel of them and their expressiveness. So in the Torn record, is very free and open and all improvised. And in this stuff was all improvised, but in a different kind of a way, a little bit more consonant, I guess. And he used a lot of really interesting sounds and stuff. I'm like, I'm going to do this new recording. It's going to start with this guy, Bill Weisbach. And I'll get a couple of my Monkey Boys to do that as well. And Scott Petito, who's a fascinating bass player. And in fact, he just did, I don't know if anybody knows who Dave Holland and John Schofield are. He did their last record that's on ECM Records. He did a Lionel Lueke, Dave Holland record. He's played with all these great drummers, and so it's really an honor to get to play with these people that elevate you. You know what I mean? And that stuff's going to be improvised. Most of my earlier stuff is composed. I think I'm a better composer than even a guitar player, but it doesn't really matter. It all comes out the same in the wash. So.
With your permission, I'm going to play a little sampling of.
Oh boy.
It's just a small snippet that does not do that justice. So I really urge you to, afterwards, talk to Ian, find out how you can locate his music, because I listening to some of his music setting this presentation up is some of the most interesting music that I've heard in a long time. So I strongly stress, please.
You're very kind, Paul.
It's very good. Ian, go ahead.
I just want to say one thing about that. A lot of that, what I've been doing a lot lately is using a lot of effects. So if you thought that there was a piano in there, and there was a little bit of like string stuff, but a lot of all that effect stuff was generated by the guitar. And I like the fact that you can bring in these different sounds and try not to sound dated in 5 years, but I mean, that's what happens when you use machines. But trying to just augment just the normal guitar playing, and that stuff is very, and one of the things when I talk about when we do improv music is to be conversational. And so to have this conversation between the musicians, it's not about showing off chops. I mean, I could have blasted through that if I wanted to, but it's like it wouldn't have a place. So it's really about trying to present a feeling and be conversational and I would just say musical, because it's fine. And it's some of the other stuff I did where there's just like, here's the guitar solo, but I like that kind of playing much more. It's much more interactive. And so that's where that ended up. I really appreciate you playing that. Jesus, that's kind of classic.
Thank you, Ian. I appreciate it. Early in the presentation, Ed Prisby mentioned wishing that more musicians were more collaborative instead of being somewhat unknowingly competitive. Well, we're going to start this portion and see how some of these musicians thread in and out during the course of the years. Next up is two gentlemen in front of me, one to my left and one way in the back of the room. First off in front of me, Mike Andriola. Ira Spin. Gene O'Brien. And in the back, an honorary Unionite, Mark. These guys were in a band called The Ways. So, Mike or Ira, how do we get to The Ways?
Well, check, there it goes. And by this time, a lot of bands were recording 45s. And it became, I just thought it was a way to jumpstart a band. Mike and I grew up together. We lived a block away from each other in Stuyvesant Village. And Mark and I went to college together at Rutgers in Newark. And I knew Gene through musician circles and wrote a couple songs. And we figured, let's record something and try and get a band together. And that's what happened. I actually have a couple copies of the single on me today, if anybody wants. I wasn't thinking merching, actually. My friend Bob Roth there in the back, since he knew all four of us were going to be here, he wanted a signed copy. So that's how that happened. But we actually we recorded that. It's 1981, I think, right? And then we gigged for 6 months, really, until it kind of just fell apart. But we did play a lot. Gene declined to join the live portion of the band.
Idiot that I was.
So we had to suffer through a nameless individual. But I mean, going back to some of the Battle of the Band stories, I was in a band with Mike Geron, who's no longer with us, and Michael Bibbo, who's no longer with us. Tony Deladonna, another Unionite. That was a union band. We played the Battle. I think our first gig was it the Knights of Columbus near the old Hofbrau? Is that, am I right? Yeah, that was the first gig we ever played. VFW, okay. 1976 or 5 probably. And another, what other, in Beer Tumful Park we played once. Another union band. And I remember going to see these older guys over there and being very impressed by their musicianship. Ian mentioned Hal Hirsch, who was probably 16 years old and playing, Steve Howe, Yes stuff, which was like, how the hell did he do that? Is he like from another planet? I mean, it was incredible musicianship for a kid,
He was out of control.
Yeah, and there's no doubt about it. And like to play at that level that young. I mean, I saw Yes, and like Steve Howe didn't play as well as Hal Hirsch doing his parts, years later. There was some really, I mean, everybody here, got on stage and played, was an impressive individual, And another thought I had about this was, this is the first time I've been in this building in Vauxhall, and on this side of town, we used to play the Burnett Junior High dances, and one of the bands that was from this side of town was Funky Generation, and I didn't know those guys. They were a little bit older, but they used to pull off great funk and R&B stuff, and I remember, I was in school with Dwayne Gaines, but his older brother was in that band, and there was the Marty Freeman and some of those guys. There was just some great players from this side of town too, and I'm sorry that none of them were aware of this or couldn't be here, and I would be kind of curious how they use their talents, going after that time. But so we were a band this band was actually existed for about a year. The producer's name's Paul Christopher was my guitar teacher, and he's from Union too. Although when he was here, he was Paul Plonka. And he was an incredible guitar player. I just actually reconnected with him. He had a band called Isles, who were they were even older than some of the people here, but they played clubs, and they were really they were a great band. All Union guys. Warren Heimel was the bass player. Warren Jack was the drummer. I didn't, and that's the only guy I know. But you know, you had great musicians in this town. You know, you really did. So that's my part. You guys say.
I was going to add one thing to what Ira was talking about. When we were putting together the Ways, we didn't have a bass player. And the first person that we both thought of was like, we got to get Gene O'Brien. Gene doesn't realize that he was like a legend because he's a couple of years older than me. So he was like, you don't get Gene O'Brien, you're not getting the best guy. And we were thrilled that he even said he would do it with us, you know.
Why is he not in the picture?
He didn't want to be in a picture that day.
We had to twist his arm.
We had to twist his arm, but we did, and he was great on the. But it was, I remember that though, like there was nobody else that we were even thinking of. It was like you were nobody. It was really something.
I did not know that, but
so thanks again for doing it. If I didn't, since 1981, we didn't really get to.
Well, I had to
talk about
lower
it.
myself. I just remember being at Englanders, and you know where the video games were, in that little alcove on the side.
Sure.
Yeah, and Hillside. Yeah, sorry. And Ira were you playing Miss Pac-Man or I forgot what game? And you said you're Gene O'Brien. I'm like, do I owe you money? Yeah. Okay. And asked me to, and of course I knew you already from seeing you play in Spectrum and so forth. And I just remember, I could be wrong. I remember the session for that at Century being really long, and for some reason outside it was really muddy. That's the only thing I really remember from that. Just really long.
It was recorded at the time where like they'd spend 5 hours getting a drum sound, but and you're paying by the hour, and it's like that's $200, $300, $400, But and that studio was the first place Bon Jovi ever recorded, and they had one gold record on the wall from a band called Slave, who had they had a big hit record, an R&B hit. So, but yeah, when we did it, and I don't know, were you going to talk about the future, or should I?
In a second.
Okay, so, all right, go ahead. So I'll back to Paul, right?
Yeah. We're going to just continue with Mike for 1 second, if we can. Mike, after the Ways, I know you went on to Four Flight Rock. What was in between?
After the Ways, I was in and out of a few bands. Yeah, I was in actually Carnaby Street for a while. Danny knows Carnaby Street very well. And it's funny, we've all interacted with each other through the years in different bands. And even now, sometimes I'll play Ira come up or stuff like that. But then I was out of it for a while. I was like, okay, there's nothing to do with music. So I kind of just went into retail in New York and got out again and got into another band and stopped playing again. So for the last 11 years, though, I've been in a band called Four Flight Rock, which basically is playing all the best rock and roll I thought was from the 50s to like the early 70s. And we've been together for 11 years. And Mark, the drummer, that guy, we're still playing together since 81, amazingly enough. And yeah, and that's pretty cool because anybody who's in a band knows that to last more than a few years is really tough because it's like a four-way marriage sometimes, and there's fights, and there's egos, and there's problems with who's singing what. Danny knows all we're talking. Everybody here knows what that's all about. And interestingly enough, since we got Mark, and it's been again 11 years, there hasn't been any fights. There hasn't been any arguments. Yes, we're getting older. The little petty stuff doesn't matter anymore. And we're still having a good time. And basically, we're playing almost every weekend. And I said this at the beginning. When this isn't fun anymore, I'm not going to do it anymore. But I got to tell you, I didn't know being in my 60s was going to be like this. We're having more fun than we had 30 years ago. And people are coming to see us, and we're playing music that we like. And, I know it's not forever, but I enjoy every gig. And, we play every gig like this could be the last one. And it seems to be working and doesn't feel like a job, and it's still fun. And I'm thrilled that I'm doing this at this age. I never could have imagined in my 20s that later on I'd be doing this. And the band sounds good. I knew we're not, we play good stuff. We like what we're doing. People are showing up. So as long as they're showing up, these places, they pay us. And that's how it works. And again, we're called Four Flight Rock, and we play every week pretty much. And yeah, Four Flight Rock, where did we get the name from? Because it sounds what does that mean? Well, if you're a rock and roll person, you might have heard of a song called 20 Flight Rock. 20 Flight Rock is a great old rockabilly tune. And one day we were trying to just find a name, and we were playing the song 20 Flight Rock. And somebody just said, well, there's four of us. Why don't we just call it 4 Flight Rock? And then we just went, okay. And that was it. And I didn't know that was going to be it. You know, certain people, when they heard the name, they're like, what does that mean? And I said, well, it means what it means. Look, it's got the word rock in it, so people know that you're playing that kind of music. There, that's my answer, whatever. Anyway, that's the name of the band. 4 Flight Rock, we play all the time around here, and it's still fun, so I'm still doing it. And on top of everything else, I get to teach guitar and bass during the week for a living, which I've been doing for 30 years. And that's still fun. So I'm very lucky to be doing this. That's all I can tell you. And I still enjoy teaching, and it's fun. And like I said, I'm still rolling. I'm going to do it until I can't. And that's that.
Mike, I wanted to thank you for teaching my son guitar. Yeah, he's really good at it now.
Now we're going to see how some other musicians come together. We're going to go back to Ira, and we're going to introduce Dave Ross over here. And we're going to start with a little video, and then we can talk about this little project I think you two are in.
Well, you skipped Barbecue Bob and the Spare Ribs.
Oh, that's coming up.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
That was before this, though.
A 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3.
Following your comment, Ira and Dave, Barbecue Bob and the Spare Ribs. How did we get there?
I started playing with Bob in '91, and he's in Arkansas now, so that's probably why we're not playing together. But I did 30 years in that band, and Dave was 20 at least, with a break. But yeah. And no, you go ahead. No. We played all over. We did tours of the South, like Alabama and New Orleans and Mississippi and the Carolinas. We went all over with that band. Had a lot of fun. Didn't make a lot of money. I think most of us have. I don't know. Well, I can't speak for everybody, but have real jobs. Because I don't know, maybe some of you were making a living somehow doing this, but still, I just never stopped playing, since high school, and that was a big project.
Yeah, and like Ira stated, we went to high school together, and since we've been in many bands together.
We had geometry, remember that?
Yeah, vaguely. I was not a good
Mrs.
student.
Lawrence.
Yeah. But that Miss Lorian and the Saddle Tones, we did that for about 5 years, I guess.
Yeah.
Barbecue Bob and the Spare Ribs. Ira has his band, The Hammers, where I would sit in occasionally. A lot of good times, a lot of good times, a lot of good music.
Dave's being modest. You also, let's say you did the Voodoods.
Yeah, Voodoods, the Skulls. Cucumbers,
right?
Accelerators,
right?
To name a few, yes.
He's been in a lot of bands, that boy.
Yeah.
Ira, there are two of your current bands right now.
Right, the Hammers at 16 Prospect, which is no longer there. Actually, we could probably stay here for another 2 hours just naming clubs we used to play that no longer exist. But And that's a blues band I play with up north called the Hellhounds on the right.
And you're celebrating your 40th year with the Hammers? I think?
Hammers is 40 years, which is crazy. Where? Carmine Apiece? Where?
It looks like, yeah, with the glasses.
No,
there's
it's
a lot of
Dominic Zarillo.
Oh, you could have said it was him. I would have believed it.
No. The thing is to not stop, right?
Dave,
Dave,
here's a couple of your bands. The Cucumbers.
Correct, yep.
And
The accelerators on the right.
I'd like, as Iris said, some of the bands, Mad Daddies, you did a single on
yes.
Sub Pop, which
Right.
is the label that discovered Nirvana.
Yeah, exactly.
Take Me Back to Woodstock, is that the one?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Now, the Cucumbers, they were a power pop band from Hoboken.
Correct. Yeah.
And I know that the husband and wife currently live in Millburn.
Yes.
How did you get in on the Cucumbers? Because they were like a real indie darling band.
We were friends, just throughout the music scene. Well, I was in a band called the Gyros. Steve Nyhoff was the singer. He had a label called Fake Doom Records. The Cucumbers were on that label. So we knew each other throughout the years. When John and Dina decided to put the band back together, they gave me a call, rehearsed, and first gig was opening up for Missing Persons in Washington, the 930 Club. And then I stayed with them for, I guess, I don't know, 6-7 years. Then I went back into Barbecue Bob and the Spare Ribs. And a lot of it is a blurry, but yeah. But the Accelerators actually started, another Unionite, John Hanson, who passed away, was the original guitar player. We started the band, the Aquarian. Weekly, we found Ron Knoll, the bass player.
Union too, right?
He's from Newark, but he's been in Union about 40 years now. Yeah, so and Ron's kept the band going. They're still playing, still going strong.
What about the Voodoos? Is that up there too?
No, you could talk about the Voodoos. Voodoos, and also about the Skulls too. Both of those bands, if you can.
Yeah, okay.
talk a
So
little
the
about that.
Voodoos was, I would say, 92 and 93. Band was started by Ron Touye from Louisiana. Got a few guys together. Actually, the Miss Lorianne video we just saw, the keyboard player, Jim Beckerman, is in the back here. But he was also in the Voodoos for quite a long time. And yeah, the band did a nice tour of Switzerland with them. So this musical journey has helped us travel and just see a lot of places and whatnot. But I left the Voodoos after I was in the band maybe 2-3 years, and I left. Dave Ambrosi came in as the drummer, phenomenal drummer, and they were still going strong. I think they're still playing occasionally. And the Skulls, yes, I was the last drummer of the Skulls. They went through about 10 drummers, I guess, for their lifespan. But yeah, it was a good rock band. That's about it.
We used to play. The characters used to play with the Cucumbers, and the Skulls at the Dirt Club in Bloomfield.
Now Home Depot.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Like that, yeah.
All right. Now I'd like to introduce another member of the panel, Danny Salazzi. Let's give him a round of applause. Danny, the characters have been around 43 years, and it's the only band you've ever played in.
Yes.
Now, there's a couple interesting items that I'd like to talk about with you.
Okay.
One, I was there, but it became this urban myth in Union that Peter Tork from the Monkees played Farcher's Grove.
Yeah, it's true. And Joan Jett was there.
And
was there as well.
Oh, yeah? Oh, really? Well, we have to mention one thing. He is the brother-in-law of this guy right here, John Greco.
Great guy, John Greco.
So how did the characters? Because it's an interesting mix. It's covers, and then you have an original. So there's two sides to the coin.
Yeah, so we started out, it was the four of us from Union High School. We all graduated in 1981. I'll just point out everybody in the picture. That's Chris Roselle. That's me. That's Weird Al Yankovic. I don't know why you picked this picture, but there's Larry Mulgeier over there, there's a guy on Colgate, Danny over there. He lives on Colgate. He's Larry's neighbor. And John Greco. So we all went to high school together. Me and John were friends since like 6th grade. And in fact, here's a little story. In his high school yearbook, in 1981, a year before the character started, I said, hey, John, remember that band we were going to start? He showed it to me one day, and I was like, oh, my God. So anyway, so we were all friends in high school. And the thing about the characters was we were always out of step with everybody else. In other words, we just didn't fit in. Like, in other words, we liked the 60s music. When everybody else was listening to the current stuff in the 70s, when we went to high school and all that, we were discovering, like, the Monkees and the Partridge Family and the Kinks and me and Mike Andrello went to school together. We would talk about the Rolling Stones constantly. I remember you went and saw, you're not going to remember this, but you went and saw the New Barbarians. And I was like, oh my God, Keith and Ronnie Wood, you went and saw them, and you were like, so that's what. See, it all comes together. So we loved the older music, and like our first gig was at our first Tommy Haggerty back there was our sound guy. He did our very first gig at Seton Hall in 1983. But we would do really crazy stuff. Like our first place that we played in a bar was called Apples in Kenilworth, and we were doing songs from the Beatles live at the Star Club that maybe like 3,000 people had in the whole country. Like we were doing like Where Have You Been All My Life and Sit Right Down and Cry. These people know these songs now because of the internet, but back then you had to be really hardcore. Like we were learning songs off of bootlegs. Our first song that we ever recorded was a song called Soldier of Love that we bought at vintage vinyl, and like I said, we were just doing really obscure, weird things that you're not supposed to do, What's that? Arthur Alexander, right? So we started playing just songs that were basically my record collection, and then we always had originals though. Even our first night in Apples, we had a song called "Puppet on a String," which was our first original. Every week we would add a few more. So as time went on. And the other thing is, somebody told me the Cryans is here, right? Okay. So we used to go to Cryans in Vailsburg. Are you related to those guys? Okay. So we used to go. Yeah. We all used the same ID to get in, just so you know. We were all this guy Michael something. We had to remember when his birthday was. So anyway, so we would go see Strutter on Thursday nights over at Cryans. We'd go see Strutter at Cryans. And then as time went on, I told this guy, Billy Baker, who was the guitar player and leader of the band, I said to him, we have a band, would you come out and see us? And he came out to Apples to see us. And the next thing you know, we're opening for Strutter at all these big places in Jersey that we could have never got to on our own. It was just a fluke. He liked the band. And so anyway, so we were playing covers and we were throwing the originals in. But the thing that I noticed was that these guys were like about 5 years older than us. And I thought, they're making really good money. They're like, you're not going to believe this when I tell you this, but they had a box truck. They had a box truck that would deliver the equipment, a whole full stage lighting, a drum thing, with all lights around that, a sound guy, people to carry the stuff in. It was unbelievable, right? But I noticed, I said to myself, I don't know if I want to get this comfortable. If I start doing this and it becomes this comfortable where, like you're playing covers and you're making all this money, you'll never want to leave, And so I said, you know what? I'm going to try to go the original way. So we started phasing the covers out and started just doing original shows at the Dirt Club and at Kenny's Castaways and all these places where you had to go on a Tuesday night because that's when the guy from the record company is going to be there. He's going to be there on a Tuesday night. So you got to go to New York City and play like a showcase to nobody, And so that's what we did. We started to go original. And so we did it for a long time. We would open up for we opened up for the Kinks. We opened up for Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. We did a bunch of shows with the Monkees. We did all that kind of stuff. And then as time goes on, and you're not big stars because we were waiting for that to happen. And you go back to playing covers because it's after a while going into New York City when you're getting older. Going into New York City or going to wherever it is to play showcases for people that are not showing up. It sort of loses the luster after a while. You're like the island of misfit toys, and you keep wondering when Santa's gonna come and take you off the island, and you never get off. I'm still on that island. So anyway, so that's basically that's the.
How did you get to L.A.?
Well, what happened was there was in 1986 there was this resurgence of the Monkees. The Monkees TV show was being shown on MTV 3 times a day. So these kids in 1986 thought that the Monkees were 20-year-old guys. They were showing the show 3 times a day. It was like the whole thing exploded. Jerry here saw us at the very first Monkees convention in 1986 in Philadelphia. They were planning this Monkees convention, and I was a huge Monkees fan, and because I also liked the idea of everybody in the band sort of looks like they belong together. You know what I mean? They like we all wear these black leather jackets that we bought. I remember we went to the leather warehouse and bought them, and we came home and we rehearsed in them. We were such goofballs. We're like, look at us. We're like, look, we got all the black leather jackets together. So anyway, we like that whole presentation was important. Sometimes you see guys playing in a band, they look like they just cut the lawn in the clothes they're wearing, and I think that's not good. You got to look like you thought about your clothes. Anyway, so we all wanted to do that thing, and we went and asked these people that were running the Monkees convention. We said, look, we're like this misfit band that's not really doing what everybody else is doing, and we love the Monkees, and we'd like to come and play a set of Monkee songs and then maybe a set of our own songs afterwards. And they picked us. There was a few other bands that were up for it, and they picked us. So while we were playing that first Monkees convention, which for us, it was off the charts. There was 1,400 kids there, and they were screaming, and when we got off the stage, they mauled us and were asking us for autographs. Ask John, right? I said to turn around to John while we were playing. I go, we're in concert. It's that was the first time because we used to be playing to 200 people or something. And so anyway, the producers of the LA Monkees convention had heard about us at this one, and they got our tape to this disc jockey called Rodney Bingenheimer, who's a famous disc jockey on KROQ in Los Angeles. And the next thing I know, we're booked to play the Monkees convention out there, but we're also Rodney started playing our song called Marianne and on the air, and he got us a gig 2 days before the Monkees convention, opening up for Dramarama at the Roxy in Los Angeles. And we were like, this is in Jersey we're playing to little places, and now we're playing the Roxy. So we went out there, and because we were being played on K-Rock out there, I said to the boys, we got to move out here. We're playing the Roxy here. Back home we're playing places that don't even, you have to they got to move the pool table before you can you can play. What I'm saying? So we all got in a van and we moved to Los Angeles.
Now, how did Peter Tork come to Farcher's Grove?
Because at these Monkees conventions, we would sometimes get to play with them. Sometimes they would get on stage with us and do songs with us. So we got to know them a little bit. And we also felt like a kinship with them because that was the kind of thing we wanted to be. When they started they put out a casting call for the new Monkees, right? And we went, and I was if we ever got past the first hurdle, which we didn't, but I was gonna tell them, look, you can't call it the New Monkees. You got to call it the Characters because no one's gonna want to see something called the New Monkees. So I said, we'll do the same thing, but we never got to that. But anyway, so we got to be friendly with them, and they would give us a lot of advice. I mean, I would talk to Peter sometimes on the phone for 2 hours, and just because he was going through some of the same stuff that I was going through. No matter what band you're in, it's the same 5 guys. They just have different faces. There's always a complainer. There's always the late guy. guy. There's always the guy that helps you with your equipment. You know what I mean? It's just it's just one of those things. So we would I got to be very friendly with Peter, and so what we would do is we would book shows where we would open up for him, and then and sometimes we would book shows where we would open up for him and then play with him. And that was one of the ones. I said, there's this place near where I live called Fortress Grove. And I said, I put the whole show together. I asked him how much you need, and we sold tickets. And at the time, I was on Blackheart Records, Joan Jett's label, and I invited Joan. I just wish that the three of us would have got on stage, Joan, Peter, but I was too afraid. It was like one of those things, like, don't push your luck. You know what I mean? They came, And so, yeah, that's how we got Peter Tork at Fortress Grove.
Now, for those who may not know, Fortress Grove it's a restaurant depot.
I still go in there and do a set every Thursday.
Now, you just did an expanded version of your CD.
Yeah.
I think on the third CD, there's a little story about you and one of the gentlemen on the panel.
Okay. The third CD. Okay, so this is where Mike Andreola comes in. I've known Mike for a long time. He was ahead of all of us. He was like the hotshot guitar player. Seriously, we used to see him and we go, because I still can't play good. So you know what I mean. So we would look at him and go, I can't play like him. But anyway, yeah. So he was playing in the high school bands, and I was thinking about being in a band, but I was younger than him, and I just hadn't got there yet. So we got to know each other. In fact, there's pictures of us on stage at Park Place. Yeah, I'll find them. But yeah. There was a place called. Now I think it's a Chinese buffet, maybe. I'm not sure, but it's all the way down Morris Avenue.
Right before the railroad tracks.
By where there's a CVS across the street from it.
Now I remember, because I wasn't planning on playing with you. You told me to come up.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, what are we going to do?
Yeah, well, the characters, you just do anything.
You just do,
you get up and I count 4 and then it happens.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah. I don't even tell the guys in the band what the next song is. So anyway, but we did this album on Blackheart Records, and so it was coming up on its 30-year anniversary in 2024. It came out in 1994. So what we did is we went in and we took all the master tapes and we had them all transferred digitally. But while we were working on it, I had this 4-track machine that Mike sold me in the 80s for $400. It's a Tascam 4-track, and it's the same type of machine that Springsteen recorded Nebraska on. Only he sold a lot more copies than this sold. So anyway, so he sold us this machine, and we used to record in John Greco's basement on Earl Street in Union, and we would just do pre-production. So what this third disc is, it's all the demos of the songs, not all of the songs, but most of the songs that are on the album. You hear early working versions where the tempo might be different, some of the lyrics might be different. There's a different bridge in a couple different songs. There's some cover songs that Kenny Laguna, who was Joan's manager, had suggested that we try. There's a whole bunch of weird stuff that we did on that 4-track machine that Mike sold us. The machine was broken for 25 years. And when we were getting ready to reissue this, a guy on Burnett Avenue fixed the machine. It's called like a one-stop repair, I think it is. And it's, Maplewood, right. He's really unbelievable, this guy's good. He fixed the machine except for one track he didn't fix. And what we had to do is we had to flip the tape over, import that track in backwards, use Pro Tools to make it go forwards, then line it up. It was a nightmare. And I drove this guy Rory, who was also on stage with us at Park Place. This guy Rory was in the characters, great guy, Rory Caponegro, and so that's the connection between me and Mike and Rich and me. We had played Melody Records when it was called Van Gogh's Ear. We had done some open mic nights together back in the day. Yeah,
That's right.
So we all know each other for a long time. In fact, I was just talking to Dave, and I said, "Hey, are you playing with anybody?" And he goes, "No." I go, I got some dates this summer. So he's going to be the next.
Actually, Danny, TV 34 probably has on archive the Starry Nights, the ones.
Oh,
right, Sal? Do you have those archives someplace? The Starry Nights, and it was hosted by Lynn.
Jamie Lynn, yeah.
Jamie Lynn Tompkins, who became she's a very prominent figure in
broadcasting and all.
Yeah, broadcasting, right. Under the tutelage of Mr. Sal Teresa right over there.
Yeah. And Sal shot the video for us when we did the 4th of July concert, right? Sal's like a, well-known guy in Union, Sal Teresa. Yeah.
Thanks, Danny. Appreciate that. Ladies and gentlemen, Danny. Thank you, Ed. Have a safe gig tonight, will you? Thanks for coming down. All right. Our next panelist in front of me, Rich Kubitz. You have an interesting story. A little later on you started. You did not start in high school with the rest of the...
I'm a late bloomer, yes. No, I actually started in junior high school.
Okay.
And went nowhere after that. We had the junior high school talent show, Burnett Junior High. And we had a band, and we practiced probably like 50 times and only played for one gig. And we played the song Destroyer by the Kinks. And I remember I never had any luck with girls, but as soon as we played that thing, there were girls coming up to me, giving me a note saying, "She likes you. She likes you." So the main reason why I picked up the guitar is I wasn't a very good looking kid. I was like kind of a nerdy guy, but the guitar gave me some gumption there. So, but we did, and it's funny because my son is here. And we did a Kinks song back in junior high school. And then my son, Tyler, later on, how many ever, 14, 15 years, well, no, more than that. I mean, whatever. He did the talent show with his friends, and they did You Really Got Me. The Van Halen version of it. And I looked back and I said, it's so funny that first time we ever performed in front of somebody, we did a Kinks song. And it was, but the kid that, Ryan Kahidi, the kid was a virtuoso guitar player, and he opened it with Eruption, and then they went into Yes, and he did. So that video is someplace. We'll find it and we'll put it on Facebook sometime today if we could find it. So
you finally made your way into a cover band, though.
Well, yeah. So, the thing is, I did it a little bit differently than you, Danny. You were worried that you were going to get stuck in the cover band thing and not be able to do originals, and I was worried. I didn't want to do a cover band. I just wanted to do originals, and I wrote my very first album was called Echo Lake, and Echo Lake was the title song. Echo Lake was about the Echo Lake that down Route 22 used to be the inspiration point of Union, New Jersey. You used to get in the car and take the girl over there and sit in front of the lake and then smooch and then go home. That's all you got until the cops came and chased you away. That was one of the lines from it. And I remember getting that album. I ordered 1,000 CDs. It took me 6 or 7 years to record because I was basically bringing musicians. I didn't have a band. I was just bringing musicians in to learn how to play the songs, and they would do the stuff for me. And then I remember going to Vintage Vinyl, and I said, what do I need to do to get my album in Vintage Vinyl? I said, here, just sign up on this card, and we'll give you a call when we sell the record. I said, well, what do you mean the record? I mean, I have a whole case. He said, no, you only get one CD here. They put one CD in a pile of all these things, and that was it. So I got home, and as soon as I got home, the phone was ringing. So I'm like, I ran up to see if I sold the record. I get on, it's for my wife, Adrian. Don't stay on the phone too long, okay? Because Vintage Vinyl might be calling me that they sold the record. Well, since they went out of business, I never got that copy of Echo Lake back. So during that time when Echo Lake was released in 2005, I started an e-zine called Let's Rock America, because I didn't think I was going to make it in any type of music business except for the fact that maybe I can start interviewing people and putting all this stuff out on the internet, because the internet was getting really hot at that time. And I used to go to Crossroads and watch bands play, and then I would write up stuff about the band and put it for content. And one day, my wife was sitting next to me, Adrian, my lovely wife Adrian is here. and she said, she said, you know something, you shouldn't be sitting here writing about these guys. You should be up there. And I said, well, I would love to do that, but I mean, to start an original band. But I was interviewing different people, and I interviewed a couple of friends of mine that were in cover bands and in tribute bands. And at the time, I have to confess, I hated the whole concept of a tribute band. I thought, I just looked at it as like you're stealing somebody else's mojo, And, but, so I started a band called Mistaken Identity, we were a cover band. And we would go to local places like Tim Kerwin's and stuff like that. And I remember you would see the set list from the band that was there the week before, and it was exactly the same set list as our set list, just a different band. The same songs, the same music, and I'm like, what do they need us for? We're not, So the concept of a tribute band came to me because I felt like I was more wanted to be a showman rather than just a musician. And I found out that the concept of a tribute band was more appealing to clubs that would hire you. And so for quite a few years, Mistaken Identity was doing both. We were doing our covers, which were heavily on the Tom Petty thing, because I'm in Damn the Torpedoes, the Tom Petty tribute band. And half of it was the Tom Petty stuff, and half of it was the covers that we saw every band doing every week. Until we got a phone call one day from B.B. King's in New York City, asking us if we'd be interested in opening for a Fleetwood Mac tribute band called Fleetwood Macs. And that's when I knew that it was real. B.B. King's in New York City is calling me to play. How much are you going to pay us? Well, we're not going to pay you. We're going to give you 50 tickets, and you can sell those tickets to your friends for $10 and make $500. Well, $500 is a lot more money than I was making playing in bars. And we got on that stage in New York City, on a stage, not in a bar. And that's when everything took off. Website, email list, all that stuff. And that's where we went from there. And now I'm 20 years later, and we're still doing it. And it's been a very, very strong situation for me. Now the problem is, Danny, like we said, you said that you can never go back into your originals. Well, the thing was, now that I'm stuck in this tribute thing, I haven't been doing originals that much. But I am now in a new band called Wanted in April, and we're 4 singer-songwriters, 5 of us in the band, and we're going to be at Salem Roadhouse Cafe on June 13th, our second show. So now I have best of both worlds. I have an original band, and I have this thing. Yeah.
And let's take a look at Damn the Torpedoes at the Stone Pony. Thank you, Rich.
I have a question. I know you didn't write that tune.
I wish I did.
Yeah, we all do. But what was it like having all those people singing that song back at you?
Well, that's the one good thing about being in a tribute band. If you forget the words,
they'll help you out.
You could just let them sing it for you. But no, it's really a blessing to be able to play in front of. We actually played in front of 5,000 people in Music Fest at the Levitt Steel Stacks Pavilion, And I don't think there's any greater reward that you can get than to have people mesmerized by what you do on stage. And I'm sure that each and every one of you has that same feeling that I get when I'm on stage. And that's one of the reasons why I love doing what I do, because believe me, I don't live in a mansion and I don't drive a Porsche, but the ecstasy that I receive from being on stage and having people watch what you're doing is tremendous.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
It's awesome. For me, what I want from an audience is for them to be quiet and then listen, and then I know they're listening.
Well, I find it's a lot more difficult to play in a small room than it is to play in a big room, believe it or not, because you're scrutinized a lot closer when you're in a smaller venue. And we play small venues too. We play 70 seat play. We used to play the Salem Roadhouse Cafe, which had maybe 50 people in it.
Yeah.
And then Lizzie Rose Music Room, which is a 70 seat room. And we usually go more acoustic rather than electric because it's a smaller, but they are very quiet. And they're scrutinizing every single thing that you're doing.
I love
Whereas
that.
if you were playing the Garden or you're playing, MetLife Stadium or whatever it is, you're not scrutinized as much because people are, everybody's all over the place. But,
Yeah, sure.
So
I like, there's a jazz club called Smalls. They don't call it Smalls for nothing, by the way. And it's really quiet. And in fact, for a jazz audience to have the equal number of men and women at a younger age kind of freaked me out in a great way. But there's nothing like breaking a string at Maple Woodstock in front of 3,000 people.
first time I played Daryl's house, the very first time we played, Daryl's house and Daryl's.
I'm going there.
And the very first time we played there, and that was a big deal for us because it was Daryl's Hall's place and everything, and that's where they filmed the TV show now and stuff.
Right.
And the very first chord that I hit, I broke a string.
Gotta
And
love
I
it.
remember my guitar player at the time, he looked at me and he pointed at my string in front of everybody. He goes,
yeah, man.
and I was like, stop.
We're going to wrap this up with one more musician to kind of talk about this band that's coming up. We're going to wrap it up because there's a couple of musicians here who played in this band. So it was real. This gentleman who had this band kind of put people together. He mixed, he matched where it was needed. Vintage Vinyl, the record store, put out an EP, and the name of the band is Ulan Bator. Gino, you were a key member of this band. I know, Mike, you played on several tracks. Some of the members from Sunrise, Brent Peckus, played on. Gene, you want to start with this before we just continue on with a little more to Ulan Bator? Danny.
Well, as you mentioned, Ulan Bator was Frank's band through and through, named after the capital of Mongolia, for whatever reason, Outer Mongolia. Thank you, teacher. And Frank was on a different level. I kind of wish he was still here. He's passed these past 15, 16 years. His sister told the story of when he was younger, reading books about knights, Knights of the Round Table, and dinosaurs, and then something just clicked, and all of a sudden he's reading Dune at a young age. I have Dune. I use it to hold up the short leg of the table. I haven't touched it yet. He was, just to give an example, like when we're in school, we're listening to, things like, been a long time since a rock and roll, Zeppelin, and he's writing lyrics like, Mother, who made me? Was it God or was it you? If it's the good Lord up above us, he's been royally screwed. I'm like, deep. For a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, he's writing lyrics like that. He's using Greek mythology in his lyrics and so forth. It's Sappho and Aspasia. And when Frank wanted your opinion, he'd ask you for it, period. And he was just a unique individual that he was up here, and we were like here. I mean, mentally, he was up here. The only Marine that I know that actually enjoyed boot camp. He actually enjoyed Harris Island boot camp.
Now, he put out 2 CDs. This first one was put out through Sony Music. He got a 1-album distribution deal. And then he recorded this album, Praxology.
In his basement.
All was done in his basement. I think, Mike, you were in on this? And any memories about those recording sessions, Mike?
Yeah, Frank was an interesting person. He was the most intense person when he got into his music. And I would go to his house and he was teaching me the songs. And he would start singing them and sweating and going crazy. Like, this is just him teaching me the song. It was a performance in his bedroom. Just unbelievable. And I was like, Frank, calm down. Show me the chords. I'll learn how to play it. We'll go in the studio. And I was like, okay. And Frank he was funny. He's like, he's very black and white. He was like, okay, you're going to play on these songs. You're going to get $50. And I was like, $50, great. I was like, I don't even know how old I was. I was pretty young, but $50, okay, I'll do it. But I got to tell you, we went over this stuff 1,000 times.
If you were lucky.
If you were lucky, it was 1,000 times. And it wasn't very complicated. It was a couple of chords. And I got to tell you, every time Frank was doing it, it was like his life depended on him. Screaming and going crazy and stamping on the ground. And this wasn't when we were recording. This is just him teaching me the song. And I was like, oh boy, what's going to happen when we get in the studio? I went into the studio with him. It was the same thing. It was the same thing. And he was going crazy and he wanted to take after take after take. And I was like, I think I'm on 2 songs. And after that, I had to bail. I couldn't do it anymore. I was like, I can't. I remember I was actually laying in bed at night and thinking about Frank. And I'm like, I'm supposed to go in the studio tomorrow with him. I don't feel good. And I remember, but that said though, he was a great guy. He was the best. He worked with Gem Records for a while. He used to just give me stuff. Just give me CDs, and he knew I was a guitar teacher. He used to give me like these guitar CDs of the chord sequences and all this stuff. And I mean, just because he was a good person, but the most intense musician I've ever worked with.
And the funny thing was, I don't know how much you experienced, more on this one here than the previous one. Side story, the previous one, I recorded all my bass parts, so forth, and then erased all of them except one. He still paid me for it because he wanted this girl, Chris.
I remember Chris. Yeah, absolutely.
Chris Kohler, God bless her. Okay, fine. I got $100. Have a nice day. But on this one, down.
You got 100?
Yeah.
Hey, whoa.
Yeah. He had a better agent.
I did. You kind of had to speak Frank. And you had to translate because if you remember Denny, if you knew Denny Colt,
I remember.
who played with Dee Snider,
right?
He would say, "Here's the song, boom, 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 boom." I'm like, "Hold on.
Yeah.
Just let me get the notes first, and then we'll keep going." And then I had to string it all together. Then he wanted a certain guitar sound. I want this high, blah, blah, blah. And I turned to Denny. Okay, he wants the sound of Waddy Wachtel on the lead for Oh Sherry. But okay, boom, and she'd do whatever. So I was kind of like a translator. I want this and blah, blah, blah. Okay, Denny, he wants this, blah, blah. Oh, okay, good. And I had to do these analogies. Waddy Wachtel or Jimmy Page with this, blah, blah, blah. So she could pull it up on her little magic box of sounds. But I don't know if you heard that, just that he didn't really know music. He didn't really write music. He had somebody else write it down for him. And he did a shortcut and just, what's that chord? Frank, I don't know.
That's exactly what happened because he would be trying. He didn't write music and he didn't know to tell you to go to a D minor to a G. So when he's explaining to you the song, he would just be like, "I want something like dun, 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 dun," and you're like, you're on the guitar, you're trying to figure what is that? How am I going to do that? And I eventually I would do something and he'd be like, "That's it," and I go, "What was it? What did I just do?"
Yeah.
And I just I was like, okay. And just funny, you mentioned something. So Gene was, a good musician. He was a good bass player. But Frank wanted this person named Chris to play. Now, here's the strange part. Chris didn't know how to play bass. I said, well, why are you going to have Chris on this record? He goes, I don't know, I just want her. So gets rid of the guy who's great and gets somebody who knew how to play with one finger going up and down the board, which I could probably show all of you within 5 minutes how to do. And
With
I
her
never
thumb
right
on the bait.
Oh, the thumb, yeah, the thumb, right. So it was strange. It was a strange experience, but
it was Frank.
It was Frank. He was a unique individual, and he was a great guy. If you knew him, he was a cool guy.
He was on a different plane. I tend to think that he hemorrhaged because his brain got full.
You got a point.
Yeah, I don't think he was meant to be on this planet.
But on a lighter side of Frank, Ulaanbaatar did one show, one gig
ever.
only, at the Show Place in Dover, right the day before the Ramones and the Cramps.
Yeah.
Ulaanbaatar never had any previous gigs, but they headlined Thursday night. Here's why. Back in that day, there was a band called the Dead Boys that played CBGBs, etc. The leader of the Dead Boys was a gentleman named Stiv Bators. The club owner, Larry, mispronounced Ulaanbaatar and thought it was Alan Bator, related to Stiv Bators. That's how they got the gig. And the reason it's billed from Chicago. Now remember, the musicians in that band were all from Union. It was Gino, it was Roger Johansson, Frank Ertl, Tom Juswick,
you,
and me. From Chicago, because at that time he was going to the University of Chicago. Therefore, from Chicago, Ulaanbaatar. And on that note, coming up in the future, we're going to have part 2, or as I call it, the encore. We're going to explore the musical journeys of Danny Gottlieb, Todd Coyne, John Dietrich, Nija Charles, Rudy Iapolo, Mitch Tanny, Hal Hirsch, Lenny Splendora, Matt Smith, The Want, Hal Myers, and Ron Garcia. But ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together. These gentlemen, Danny Salazzi, Dave Ross, Don Erdman, Gene O'Brien, Ian Smith, Iris Spin, Mike Andriola, and Rich Kubitz. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.